Kraków, Poland's unofficial capital and home to many historical sites, buildings and structures that date back centuries. The famous Wawel Castle royal residence in central Kraków has been home to a host of Poland's most significant monarchs. Due to its significance to the country's history, it now serves as a museum and has a vast collection of fascinating royal and military items. From the 11th to the 17th century, Wawel Castle operated as the primary royal residence for monarchs in Poland. The castle is situated atop Wawel Hill. It is said to have been established by legendary Polish prince Krakus following his defeat of the fearsome dragon who lived in the caves below. The prince then founded Kraków and built the first Wawel Castle atop the dragon's lair. Whether this legend is true or not, in the 11th century it is known to have become the residence of Casimir I the Restorer, whose building operations provided the earliest remains of the castle today. Krakow's Rynek Główny, the historical centre and heart of Kraków, is punctuated with some of the most magnificent middle-aged architecture the city has to offer. The main square served as a primary market square in the city. The aim to create such a big market square was to make a place for all merchants, both local and coming from abroad. The main function of the Rynek Główny through the centuries has always been commerce. During Krakow's early history, citizens were not allowed to sell goods on the streets, and only in the Rynek. It is still surrounded by old brick buildings and palaces, almost all of them several centuries old. The first plans were drawn up in 1257 and have been retained to this day. Unlike Warsaw, Kraków was not destroyed during the World War II, mainly because of the Nazis that had set up headquarters there. Therefore, the Rynek looks pretty much the same as it did in the 13th century. The Zakrzówek is a flooded quarry in the city of Kraków. It was created in 1990 in a former limestone quarry when the invading groundwater had stopped being pumped out. The banks are mostly steep rock faces with a height of up to 30 meters. The lake is used by people in Kraków as a local recreation area. In June 2023, after a renovation, swimming in the lake was allowed in designed areas. For many years, it was forbidden to swim here. However, people did it anyway. At some point, the lake was allowed to be used by the local diving community for training. The water was as deep as 70 feet or 21 meters in many spots, so it was perfect for deep diving practice. Because the lake was so deep and it was surrounded by cliffs, people would often come to jump from daring heights. This led to many deaths over the years, especially in the summer. These deaths were a cause of one of the many reasons why the city forbade swimming here, as they did not want to be held responsible. Fun fact, John Paul II, before he was Pope or even a priest, worked here during the World War II. He had been attending a university, but when the war broke out it was compulsory that he begin in a job, so he left university and started working in the quarry.
I've been to Krakow once. I must have been about 17 when I went. I remember I was at college, and it was a great experience. It's a really great country. I think one of the things that completely amazed me about it the most is like how cheap everything is. You couldn't spend any money when you were there. You're going out and having like full 3-course meals for the equivalent of about 20 quid. It was great. But it's so historical, and all the people were really friendly. I'm gonna butcher this. Is it Wawel Castle? Wawel Castle, yeah. Old Town Square. Right. So, yes, I went to Wawel Castle. I went to the Old Town Square. I'm trying to remember where else I went. I went to the salt mines. I remember that. That was really cool. And all of those were just great. again, there was so much that I learned about sort of the history of Poland, and then sort of Polish culture. I'm very geeky and sad about things like architecture, so I like looking at old buildings and things like that. And I remember the Old Town Square, you've got some beautiful buildings, and yeah, there's a lot of, especially because of the war and stuff, there's a lot of historical stuff within Poland and interesting things that you learn about, you know, what you went through as a country, and what sort of Polish people had to kind of endure during that space of time. And it was interesting to learn about, you know, that kind of thing from a different perspective, because obviously you learn a lot in Britain about the war and how it affected us, but it affected Poland quite horribly, and it was interesting to learn about that and see that, you know, the war's a terrible thing and we shouldn't do it again. I think I've covered that one a little bit. I did enjoy the food as well. There was some good food that we had there. I do like a pierogi. Pierogies are absolutely spot on. I remember having some Polish wine, which was also really nice. Touched on that a little bit. I think definitely, especially where war's concerned and things, the idea of you don't repeat it again, but also learning about other countries and learning about people's cultures and their ways of life, it broadens your horizons, and it makes you more open-minded. So I think sometimes when you live in one place and you only know people from that place, you don't really think about the outside world, and you don't think about other people's perspectives or life experiences. And within travelling and going to different places and actually experiencing culture for yourself and talking to people and finding out what their lives are like, it makes you more open-minded and realise that, do you know what, there's a lot of similarities between us really, and, you know, stepping out your comfort zone, doing something different actually has its benefits, and it's really nice.